I'm back. So that was a great start to the stream. I should have. I was gonna get to this. I should apologize. I have Canadian internet, and sometimes it was on its best behavior today, but sometimes it hates me. And my teammates can attest to this that it does give out at the worst of times during NGS games as well. So if it does that again, I really apologize. It never goes out for more than 30 seconds to a minute, and so hopefully all that stuff doesn't build up too much that you hate us and stop watching. Uh, so, um, Silva, where were we when my great internet
So
decided to hate me?
we were commenting that there will be chat interaction provided the internet keeps up. We
Yeah,
did mention we mentioned we are the front line, so expect the bias, and I think we're about ready to begin the actual analysis. If you are, I
sure.
think that's everything.
Why don't we start with Duroton's Couch, which is the 8th seed. I'll also be flipping through the standings as we see here. We got some stats, spreadsheet lovers out there.
Oh yeah.
And so let's start with Duroton's Couch. So initial thoughts, Silver, on Duroton's Couch.
Initial thoughts, like sort of just like a season analysis per se, before we actually get to the initial thoughts. Dirtot's Couch had a very inconsistent season, and something you'll note a lot between the difference between B East and B West is that B West doesn't have, and I dare say this controversial line, as many upsets as B East does. B West tends to be very stable, and B East tends to have the bottom seeds taking games off the top seeds. And we see that with Dirton's Couch. They are the eighth seed, but they have taken games in series off higher ranked teams. And on top of that, they've lost to teams a lot lower than them on the playoffs and lost to most of their contemporaries around this level. So that is how their season went. They were sort of all over the place. At one point, it actually looked unlikely that they'd get into the playoffs, but we're glad they made it up and get to eighth place. So, what are your thoughts about Dirton's Couch?
Yeah, I put them. Tricky Goose is the 2nd seed team, by the way. I'd put them as Tricky Goose's light. I think they have the ability to meme. They add some meme in. Ace is their main meme player, and he might get a shout out later too. But they played some Hammer. They played some ABBA. They played some Mave, which I would say is just touching the meme a little bit. Just because melee assassins aren't super in right now. And so I think they have that potential to scare you if you're a higher seed team, because they just have that unpredictability there of drafting a very non-meta comp and kind of confusing you. So that's something that keeps you on your toes.
Uh,
Yeah, go ahead, Silva.
yeah, and it's also important to note that the roster is actually like very large. They have over 6 players who've played 10 plus games, and the rest of the roster, which is 3 more subs, have all played a few games themselves. So a big thing you have to watch out when facing this team is you don't actually know who's going to face you, even like across games, as they constantly switch people out with other subs. So a lot of people just on the team. So as we like sort of shift to hero stats, you have to like keep that in mind that there are like essentially 2 people for every role.
Right. So as we talk about heroes a little bit, ETC is by far their most played hero with 14 games. And Joanna's up there with 7. So from the main tank role, over a majority of their games, you see ETC or Joanna as the main tank. But another observation in terms of their most played heroes, as you can see on the screen right now, is they don't their most played heroes doesn't necessarily translate into high win rates. It's important to know, I think they had a 40% win rate on the season.
Yes, they
So
did have a
any
40%.
deviant from that is below or above average their overall win rate.
Mhm.
As I mentioned earlier, they
So
play a couple memes as well. And Silva, do you want to move on to maps? Or...
yeah. So just want to point out though, like the Decker especially is very impressive.
Yeah.
Like having a 20% higher win rate than their average, as well as the Leoric over 6 and 7 games is pretty reliable. I would fear the Joanna the most probably from their team. Joanna and Leoric the most, just because they've had those extra games with those extra stats. But moving on to the maps. As you can, the most played maps are Infernal Shrines with 7 games and 2 in the Spider Queen and Curse as follow-ups with both 5 games. And we can sort of see that, not a very good win rate on Infernal Shrines, even though they go there a lot. But they do have a very good win rate on Tomb comparatively to most of their other maps with that many played. So if I was facing them, I would ban Tomb and maybe also ban other very melee heavy maps where it's brawly. So you see Battlefield Eternity, sorry. Although it only has like 2 games played, it is a 50% win rate. So maybe just try to out macro them more so. Because they do also have like a very weak merc uptime. And they have they have one of the best first fort takers to like win rate. For example, like every time they get the first fort in a game, they have a 70% win rate. So that win rate shoots way up over 40. So maybe doing a more macro, slower gameplay would be better.
Yeah, I also would like to preface that I think win rate after first fort taken and win rate after first keep is going to be our favorite stat for the rest of the night. So just get prepared for that. We really like that stat.
It leads to some interesting analysis.
Yeah.
Continuing with the maps, they ban Braxton and Alterac very often, and they actually ban Battlefield of Eternity about 5 times compared to Alterac 6 and Braxton 7. So, that's 3 maps they do not like. So if you're facing them in the playoffs, which I think is us, getting onto one of those maps is very likely and maybe a priority.
Yeah, and obviously I think those bans tell you they kind of are afraid of all-out teamfight maps or brawly maps. Mm-hmm. Preferring kind of more of a potential to macro or just wave clear and things like that.
Which is a little counter to what we were saying, but
yeah, but you can still have a brawly team style like play style on a macro map. So that's not necessarily a contradiction.
Okay. It's also the last fun fact is that they're tied with 2 others, but for the biggest hero pool in B East. So expect a lot of, and that might be tied to how many people are on the roster. Right. But you can't really ban them out when it comes to heroes.
Okay. Do you want to move on to Dive for Vision?
Sure. So Dive for Vision is 7th place on the rankings. They started off with some early losses, but they managed to turn some things down around mid-season with some upsets against Tricky Gooses, the players, the team number 2, and they took some games off of the higher ranked teams, like us, Tiny Dancers. They took a game off, and Ruba Rotations. Although Ruba Rotations was ranked much higher at that time, they've sort of fallen down in I think literally the last week. They did have a rough ending though, and they almost missed playoffs, similar to Turton's Couch. Because they played most of their games very early into the season, all their flex matches were done almost first. So there's this interesting thing with Dive for Vision where I think they went as high as 3rd, and then as more teams played their flex matches and the moderators got more relaxed, they sunk down and down and down to I think 9th, and they just barely managed to squeeze back into the playoffs with one last win against Turton's Couch.
Yeah. So going off initial impressions, we kind of behind the scenes term this team kind of the Giant Killers. I think I don't know if you've talked about this already, because I was just clicking through some frames, but they took some really impressive wins off of really good teams. Not always leading to a series win, but taking maps off of them. Tricky Gooses really sticks out, in which they kind of beat Tricky Gooses by kind of memeing the meme. So they knew Tricky Gooses loved to do all this kind of weird team con stuff with Butcher, Ufa, Abba, Samaru, all that kind of stuff, and they memed them right back, and kind of really threw Tricky Gooses off, and that was a really impressive series win that they had in the season. So I think if they have that potential to kind of really foresee what their opponent loves to do and directly kind of completely throw that off through a draft strategy, I think that was pretty impressive.
Yeah, and on the other side though, they also typically lose against a very low ranking teams or have lost the games they shouldn't have lost. So I think the takeaway we've gone with them is that they're very good at matching the other team for better or for worse. Similar to Turton's Couch, inconsistency has sort of marred them throughout the season.
Yeah.
So especially with their loss to other middle ranked teams that are 1 or 2 above them. So you really don't know what you're going to get with this team. And this inconsistency is also we'll find out later, is a very big difference between B East and B West. Where B East, you have these inconsistent teams that beat the top teams and lose to the bottom teams. Where B West, there's very little upsets, dare I say, outside of 1 or 2 rankings. We'll talk about the exceptions later.
So let's move on to some of their most favorite heroes. We see 11 games on Reyna with a 54% win rate, which is I believe 10 points higher, around 10 points higher than their overall win rate as a team. Um,
Mhm.
and then you have a bunch of people at 6 games played, so they kind of have like Reina obviously is whoever the DPS's favorite pick is, but then they have kind of a very even spread after that, and it doesn't necessarily correlate to win rate. As we see, a lot of them only have 2 out of 6 games won. So I would say that the most pick characters don't necessarily translate um, to wins, which we see
Except
with
Reyna.
other teams later. Um,
Yeah.
any last comments about heroes before or stats before I move on to the maps?
No. Do you want to do the maps here?
Yeah, I can do the maps. So I would also say like another really even breakdown between the maps, like a lot of fours, a lot of fives, a couple threes. Um, but it seems like the maps that they play the most, well, certain maps that they play a lot, they do really well on. But then you see as you get down to 2, 1, 1 on Alterac, Braxis, and Tomb, they don't look very comfortable on maps they don't play very often in NGS.
Mhm.
And those are big zeros across the board there for 4 different maps. So something you might want to think about when you're playing against them. You might want to go for map pick and force them onto a map that they have a 0% win rate on. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, those are my map analysis.
Yep. And onto the bans though. As you might notice, Dragonshire is not on there, and Two of the Squire Queen is not played much, and those are the two most frequent bans, with Volskaya being a third, with 8, 6, and 4 bans respectively. So it's very interesting though that I think Volskaya started being banned later into the season, as you sort of saw. There's 3 games with 0% win rate, so Volskaya slowly got banned more and more. And, do you have any last thoughts that or fun facts you want to give about this team?
Yeah, I'm not. Uh, chat isn't super active right now, so that not a lot has come up there. But I think I my takeaway is that I would be really scared as a top seed facing this team. Similar to Duoton's Couch, I think of the bottom half of our division of B East, these two teams might be the scariest going in, just because they have that unpredictability level. They've beaten good teams, they've dominated good teams, and so that's I guess that's the main takeaway is the unpredictability of both the 7th and 8th seed that we've talked about so far.
Mhm. Yeah. Other fun facts is, um, they do have like the worst KDA in the league at the moment for people left in playoffs. So, but that's mostly because um, they have less kills than more deaths. So maybe playing around that fact that they're not as good at killing you might be beneficial as well.
Yeah, I think also the KDA may be thrown off a little bit. I think some of the losses I've seen them in, they've lost really badly.
Mhm.
Um, so where they've really run up those death counts, and so I think that might be what's throwing off their KDA a bit. But it's still quite a low KDA considering they're a playoff team. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, maybe that influences a bit about how other teams feel about beating them in team fights.
All right. So is it okay if I move on?
Yeah, Roomba rotations. Take it away.
Yeah. So before we can talk about Roomba, we gotta talk about Salt Scale Murgles. And yeah, that's who Roomba rotations were last season, or at least 3 of their main characters. Um, and Social Murgles is the team that actually won all of B East last year, and they took 2 games off of You're Not Alone. For those veterans there, You're Not Alone was the winners of B West, and they actually won without dropping a single game. Yeah, see the chats rowing. Um, yeah, so it's important to note with Salt Scale Murgles that, and I'm lightly tapping around this issue, that halfway, like towards the end of the season when playoffs were starting, they had some roster issues, I think, and 2 subs came on for specifically only playoffs or primarily playoffs.
I think they may have gotten 1 or 2 games in at the end of their season.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we were the actually us as Italian Dancers were the first team facing them in playoffs,
Oh
and we
yeah.
got smoked.
Yeah.
It was that we were not
We might
happy
have quit
campers there.
Heroes for a month after that. How badly we lost. Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah, it was not a fun time. And part of that was due to the lack of scouting we could do. Like we very much prepared heavily scouting wise for team members that weren't there. And on top of that, the 2 subs they got in greatly improved their team. So, and I don't know what happens behind closed doors, but it's important to note that the 2 subs are still on their roster as subs. And I don't want to accuse them of like changing the roster midseason to try to get an advantage. But I think as a competitive team, you need to be aware of the possibility in case they do so. And if they don't, I'm sorry. And I don't want to say they did it to be for any malicious reasons. Like again, we don't know what happens behind closed doors.
And it is all by the book too. We should say that's all
yeah,
following
exactly.
NGS rules. So it's definitely.
But
not...
I think I am glad I'm not the first team facing them in playoffs.
Right.
And I think the first team placing in the playoffs should look for those grand champions last season against You're Not Alone, just for some extra context to figure out what happened. Because they did manage to take 2 games off of that team. Okay, Dexter isn't on their team this season. Okay, so maybe we're wrong.
So now that we've done that whole spiel, do you want to get into like how Roomba rotations this season has done and their strengths and weaknesses?
Yeah, and apparently Dexter, according to Chad, is not on their team anymore. So maybe we're just throwing shit where it doesn't be deserved, and I apologize if that's the case. We're trying to be like respectful that we don't know what happened, but also comment about what is a thing.
Yeah.
Okay, you know what? Maybe it is salt. We'll see. Yeah, it's like a weird thing to talk about a little. Yeah, so Roomba rotations. I think they were actually gunned as one of the stronger teams coming into this playoffs, and I think they've fallen all the way to 6th, where we currently are. Okay, DB. Okay, sorry, I'm half reading chat. I apologize.
Yeah, to be clear, we weren't saying Roomba rotations was doing anything scummy. It's just we're giving a kind of breakdown of like what teams should do and look for going into the playoffs. And I think it's fair to notice that Ethan G and Alexia, I think, are the 2 people we're kind of referring to, are on their roster. So you might want to look into them, the history of how they've played, just to counter them. But we're not saying that we have an issue with it. We're just kind of bringing attention.
Yeah. Anyway, just to move on from that, because that's not where we want to like sit and stew. Roomba rotation is actually a very interesting team to analyze this season because they don't often go to game 3. Instead, they actually find themselves either dominating by a lot or being dominated by a lot every game. And we sort of think that's pointed to more of a play style than a skill difference, per se, because one of the many games we've watched with Roomba rotations is they have a very consistent play style that is aggressive and that is pick-based. And Modell, you can go into that a little more.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely, and they've evolved a bit as a team over the course of the season. Obviously, picking up 2 new members, I think. I know one is MJ Doom. I'm forgetting the name of the other one. But our kind of scout going in was kind of that they kind of seem to draft teams around like high dive or high like kind of engage with a kind of really planned out CC chain built around big alts and things like that. So it's very kind of like I guess it seems all pre-planned in draft. It's not just they pick a bunch of people who happen to have CCs and then they chain them. It's very much knowing the kind of alts they want to work and synergize together and result in picks. And I think importantly to note up, they're not looking for these big team wipes because they actually, I believe, have less kills than other playoff teams.
Yeah,
quickly
the KDA is a little low. They do have the 3rd high KDA, but it's because they don't die a lot, not because their kills are especially high.
Yeah, so the KDA comes from not dying more than it does from killing a lot. Which goes, I think they go for a pick, and they look to leverage that pick into an objective, into a fort, into map advantage in some way. So they're kind of really planned out how they want to kill someone, but they're not just looking for fights all the time. No. They want to make sure all their ults are up and kind of combo them the way they envisioned them. That's kind of how we see their kind of overall strategy.
And that actually plays into like who they beat and who they didn't beat. So they typically actually lost to either hyper-aggressive teams or teams that like typically play very, very safe. So, for example, they lost to us Tiny Dancers because it was we'll get to later. We're famous for double tanks, and that's very difficult for a aggressive team to get the picks on. Well, meanwhile, like they lost to Boogan as well because Boogan is, I think, one of the better team fight teams in the league, and so they don't care if Roomba's being aggressive at them because they're being just as aggressive, punching back, kind of thing.
Boogan will take a team fight all day, and they will keep that team fight going forever. So it doesn't matter if Roomba gets that pick. Boogan was probably still going right in there, slashing to the last man kind of thing.
But and they lost. They did take a lot of wins off of teams that weren't prepared for this strategy or weren't used to this hyper aggressive that they sort of do, strategic hyper aggression. So, if you look at actually how they went throughout the season, like they were up and then they were down and then they were up and then they lost a big upset. So, really all over the place. I'm actually surprised they landed as low as sixth. They were looking to be almost third or second at one point, like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
But that's how the numbers landed, and here we are.
Yeah, I think they're one of those teams though that like I think should scare any playoff team because when they're on all cylinders, they're so scary. You're like, how the hell do I deal with this? But then at other times you see them kind of not quite get the draft they want, or the other team drafts well, and it doesn't seem to ever like fully come together within that game. So I think that's how they lost some of their games this season. But at the same time, you see that potential of when they've gotten everything they wanted in the draft, they've got the map they want, and they're executing the strategy you want, and the other team just has no chance. So I think it's the two-sided coin there.
Yeah, I think Roomba is one of the most make or break into the draft teams in the league. I think if they get the draft they want against the other team that's not prepared for their strategy, the game is a little bit over before it begun sometimes. Yeah. And I think that's a very impressive drafting ability, to say the least.
So I think that's enough talking about Roomba in concepts, but let's move on to some of the actual heroes they play.
Okay. You can talk about that then. Yeah,
so they play, I would say, like, their most played characters, they play more than other teams. You see 10 games on Reyna, 9 games on ETC, 9 games on Ana. Those are quite high numbers overall. And unlike, I think it was Dive Vision I was talking about this, unlike Dive Vision, Roomba seems, when they get the characters they play a lot, they seem to win a lot on them, with the exception of Ana only being 55 and Greymane 50. But Reyna 70, ETC 66, Anduin 83. Like, those are really high win rates from the characters they play a lot.
Yeah, and that Tassadar win rate is nothing to sneeze at.
Oh yeah, that's pretty sexy. Yeah, Tassadar win rate. But I mean, obviously Tassadar, I would argue, is one of the top 4 meta picks in the game. But maybe don't let them get the meta picks.
Yeah.
You want to? Okay, I'm gonna go quickly to maps now. Unless you have some stats you want to bring up.
We've been on Roomba for a little bit, and we got to move forward. We have a lot of teams to cover.
Kind of a pretty even map distribution, I would say. The maps they play more, they win a lot on. I know it's probably an empty calorie kind of comment, but that's what I'm seeing. And I guess maps they play very few, they have a chance to not to do some great on. So if you want to take us into bans.
They only have 2 bans at Sky Temple and BOE, with 10 on Sky Temple and 8 bans for Battlefield of Eternity. So you could probably count on them to ban both maps. I think I looked into it. The only time they didn't ban Battlefield of Eternity was because the other team banned it. So, if you're worried about either map, just let Roomba ban it. They'll do it for you very easily. Yeah.
All
right. So
moving on. Uncomfortably Numb. Now this is a very interesting season. I remember looking at DB Smiley's. Also, I should take a second to shout out. Actually, we should have done this at the beginning of the stream. A lot of resources we used to put this together. DB Smiley comes to mind. Key did a lot of the stats too throughout the season, and so
of course,
huge shout out to all of them for kind of supplying so much analysis throughout the season and letting us kind of have these resources to kind of really turn them into nice little short snippets of analysis.
And an additional shout out just to do this work they do weekly, because at least for Time Dancers, it really kept us into the season, especially during COVID. Stay indoors, and we were very excited to watch DB Smiley's whose simulation thing. Not even for ourselves, we also were very interested to see who's actually making playoffs too. And we were also very interested in the Keel, I think is the proper pronunciation.
Okay.
Key.
I've always done Key, but
you know what, it doesn't matter. I'm sorry if I'm wrong, but I'll call him Keel because that's what I always called him. But yeah, his stats were always very interesting to look at, to see sort of what we were doing well comparatively and all that. Even though it's just stats of the storm, but I mean, so nicely prepared is very good. Anyway, we should get into Uncomfortably Numb though. It's Key. Okay, well, my bad. I apologize for all the times I called him that in my. Yes, you were right. I was wrong, Liddell.
Yeah, this is how it normally goes. For Uncomfortably Numb, they had a very interesting season. As I was saying, DB Smiley, I think, put them as number 1 or 2 seed, or prediction seed going into the season, and that played out. They started well. They went 4-0 in their first 4 games, and then they had like a really rough part of the season where they just could not find wins. They were losing a lot, and then they really found a stride later in the season and won a bunch of games to kind of close out the regular season and climbed all the way to 5, which is not insignificant. Kind of trying to not get one of the top teams as your playoffs first round matchup.
Yeah. It's also important to note a little bit is that their wins and their strides sort of has to match with one of their players specifically. So we actually did an interview with Novus, I think, a few weeks ago, and he admitted to this ringer, dare I say it, called Spectre, and I quote, "He will carry us," is what he said, and he had bad internet during the middle of the season, had to bow out for a lot of it. So Uncomfortably Numb actually like won their first few games with Spectre, lost a lot of games without him, and then started winning again when Spectre came back. You look at actually the players playing, you can see maybe a reasoning behind their wins and losses. So at least their team puts a lot of emphasis on Spectre's abilities, if nothing else.
Yeah, and also from the games he's played in NGS this season, it looks like he's kind of one-dimensional. I think he's played a lot of Alarak and Valera, but then we don't have a ton of tape on him, so he could have a deeper player pool than Led's on. So that's kind of an unpredictable factor going into the playoffs, and not having a ton of tape with him playing on the team and how they play with him. So I think that's
it does seem like he's an Alarak main though, because he's played in almost every game he can. If you don't ban it, he's going Alarak. I think the Valera was the few exceptions.
Yeah,
but there's like actually substantial games of him going Alarak. Yeah, sorry I interrupted you there.
No. So with that said, I think we can move on to some of the hero picks.
First I just want to shout out a stat. Uncomfortably Numb actually has exactly 1 KDA with both high kills and high deaths. I don't know how they managed to set the numbers to be that. I guess maybe one team has to be at every league or every season, you know. But congrats on them for getting that number. Perfect number. So now you can move on to
so we see a lot of games on Arthas. I've seen a little, maybe Abba Arthas a couple times, and also Abba Lucio. But that could be a bit why they feel very comfortable on Arthas and having him as their main tank. And it's translated to wins. I think is Famous also the one on Uncomfortably Numb?
Yes, Famous is the EDC. Yeah, EDC.
He plays a lot of Hanzo. I think Hanzo's a hero is pretty weak right now, but I think the skill level of Famous playing Hanzo is quite high. He might hate me for saying Hanzo's a weak character, but that's definitely a talk on Tiny Dances. We definitely are not Hanzo fans.
No.
And we do see a lower win rate than the overall win rate, I believe, on that character.
Yes.
But once again, obviously the high task win rate speaks for itself, and Reyna high win rate. He's kind of like a nothing bad about him type of hero right now. But I will say they do play Dahaka a lot too, and I'm very much don't like Dahaka right now. I think he's weak in a lot of situations, but they managed to turn that into wins with 60% win ratio. So definitely proving me wrong in that sense.
Yeah. Just to sort of like go for more how they play the map. Some interesting other stats is they actually have one of the worst mercenary uptimes in the league. The B East specifically, and they also have a very poor time to first fort. So those two might be related stats as they don't take a lot of early caps potentially, but also like that sort of speaks to their early aggression. And if you just sort of look at the players they like pick, a lot of those except for Raynor tend to be later game characters or characters that can't really push super hard initially. So you might be able to punish that with some early aggression. Maybe Sylvanas might be good into them to sort of deny them that. Or alternatively, you take that they're not going to be early aggressive and pick some late game characters to counter their late game characters. Like, pick a Zul'jin, say, hey, if we go to late game, we have the better one. If you can talk about map picks.
Yeah, maps. So I think they're the antithesis of one of the teams we talked about earlier about losing on maps they don't play very often. They love a one and done on maps they played once. They have 100% win rate on all of Alterac, Sky Temple, and Cursed Hollow. So maybe that scares the team away from picking a lower played map just because maybe they do have some strategies up their sleeve that they have kind of waiting for you. Um, they also have a really good win rate on Infernal Shrines, which I think is pretty impactful because that's a lot of teams' favorite maps and it gets played a lot. And so having good win rate on that map is really useful because it kind of denies or scares other teams away, maybe from going to it.
Yeah,
Even
but
though
I
it's
would
their own
actually.
favorite map.
The only exception to that would be Ultrac Pass, which they've banned 4 times. Those might be like target bans, but they almost always ban Braxis, which is the map which is a lot of teams don't want to play throughout the series.
Yeah.
That's like a
I
very
think it's
consistent
just
thing.
the snowbally factor of it that it feels like
Yeah,
it's impossible to come back on. Um,
and also they also like to ban Battlefield of Eternity, which if you notice they never played. So Braxis and Battlefield of Eternity clear the priority bans with Ultrac as a close second.
yeah,
So
and the hate is there for the 2 lane map apparently, um,
yeah,
which is fair.
but
I think a lot of teams don't like 2 lane maps. It's very different kind of play style than often a lot of 3 lane maps. So
yeah, all
um,
right.
yeah.
And,
Any last comments other than
no,
our
I think
shout
that's
out
it.
famous just and in the sense
We
that I
play
think
we
we've
play with famous
recognized.
as well.
Yeah, we do a little bit, but we've recognized like his skills evident. Even if his hands win rate isn't as high as you might like it, it's
Yeah.
definitely like
I think
clear that the skill is there.
I think famous was also the B East Nexus Edge shout out. So
So he gets
really just
double
getting
shot.
getting all
Yeah,
the attention.
it's
Yeah,
too much. Yeah.
yeah. No, never mind. I take back the shout out. He can live with the Nexus Edge shout out alone.
All right.
All right. So now we go
The one tricks.
1 tricks. Yeah, and this is a Keys team. So shout out to him. We already did it, but all the people who are shouting out except for Palandrith are in this B East. So I guess we'll get double shout outs.
The East is just caster's dream, I guess.
Yeah.
All the behind the scenes people just love the East.
Yeah, I think Captain Wedge was on an earlier team too, which is another behind the scenes person.
Yeah. So how did one trick season go, Silva? What's your kind of first impressions of that?
One Tricks, I think, has my favorite season because they won their first 4 sets without losing a map. The first time they dropped a map, they dropped a series, and then continued to lose. Then they lost 4 series, so they won 4 series, then lost 4 series, and then they won their last 3. So if I had to take a bet, if there was a 12th game we were playing, they would have won that just to make 4-4-4. But that's a replacement to how their season went, though, obviously. So they went really high. They were one of the first few teams in those first few weeks who didn't drop a game. I think they were actually the last team to not drop a game. Then they, staggered as they got dominated 4 times in a row. And then they climbed up at the end because they got their wins back. Uh,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah,
so
DP
yeah, and that's what
Smiley
Smiley
isn't.
points out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what
he's,
you were
he's
going to
saying
mention.
it's quality of competition, and a lot of these trends, I think, do fall under quality of competition. Um,
But the nice numbers makes me happy.
and I do think the one tricks are a good enough team that it's not necessary. Like I think they can beat any of the top teams in the league, and so losing 4 in a row is still I think a bit of a slump. And we do know Royal, their main tank, somewhat well. We've played with him a couple times, and I think he has talked about kind of some of the shifts they made mid-season to kind of trying to change up their play style. And I think Royal took more shot calling action, or so I don't want to speak without like fully remembering what he said, but I do remember them making kind of certain strategic shifts. And and while we're on Royal, I think we should shout. I really noticed in terms of how the one tricks plays, like he's a very like solid main tank, and that he kind of clearly sets up the engages and really leads the team in how he plays, kind of setting up the team fights in an advantageous
And again,
way.
we're giving a lot of shouts to good tanks, but that's also because we're both front lines. So,
Yeah.
What did you expect?
Yeah. But though I do remember playing him specifically when he was on ETC, and we just had no answers that game. We were like, he was in every bush. He was ahead of us on every rotate, and that's whoever was shot calling too gets credit for that, as well. But yeah, I think he does a really good job at setting up the team fights.
Okay, so
you want to move into
so before that, just some general team analysis kind of stuff. So the one tricks actually have the smallest hero pool.
Yeah, that's definitely internet. It's cool. Uh, Actually, I don't know if it was internet. I just assumed Kasova went silent, but maybe his Discord has silenced on me. Um, give him a second to figure that out, just in case we are live and I've made a huge blunder about our live status. Okay, well, Silva, if you can hear me, we've lost you. Hopefully we get you back at some point. Yeah, that's Canadian internet for you. It's so bad, even when it doesn't give it out, you just assume if anything goes wrong, you just blame it on the internet. So I'll take this away. So the one tricks, I'll leave whatever wonderful stats Silva was talking about for hopefully when he gets back. We have you back, Silva?
Where did I cut off? I apologize.
We can hear you, and you cut off at some interesting stats about them. Yeah.
So and in case you didn't, small hero pool.
Yeah, in case you didn't know, I just assumed the internet gave out on my end. So there's probably about 20 seconds of dead air. So that's super high quality streaming you get at Canadian Corner.
Yeah, it's really Canadian internet. Real. That's how you know it's real, and we're authentic Canadians.
Yeah.
So did you hear the small hero pool?
Yeah, smallest in Division B East, right? Yeah.
So they have the smallest hero pool and the smallest map pool. So if you notice, they actually only have 6 maps played, as opposed to like 7 or 8, which most teams typically do.
And throwing off my infographic based on that. Clearly. So that's
and also how they, and so like that really tells me like they have a way to play that's consistent and they know how to do it, but they don't deviate from it. Like you're not going to really get a lot of memes from this team or a lot of like shaking up. And also if you just look at how they draft every game, they actually always draft a main tank, a typical off lane, like Art or Uriel is their favorite, or Tannis and Uriel.
Yeah.
No, never do double tank, which is sort of a little bit of a popular thing in Bees. And then they do a meta backline with 1 mage and 1 AA. Typically, sometimes they'll replace the mage with False Dead, and that's shaking things up.
Right.
But you're basically guaranteed the team comp. You're guaranteed which characters. You're guaranteed the maps. So a lot of consistency. But they have like a lot of good stats to back up this consistency when they get it. They have a very good camp up time. If they get the first objective, there's a good chance they'll win the match. Same with the first fort. Well, the first fort's a little lower than expected. If you really want the secret to beating Keel's team, and this is the funniest fact we found so far in the league, I think, the One Tricks have a 20% win rate playing as blue side and an 80% win rate as red side. So,
don't let them be don't let them be the away team. Definitely
you want
tip off the scheduler before the season and make sure you are the away team when you're facing.
Yeah. And you will win significantly more. I don't know why, but
although I would sometimes there's slight differences on maps, but I'm not gonna try and weasel my way into actually arguing for a huge difference in win rate based on red or blue.
And I think the only main thing is Hanamura, I'd argue too, and that's not even an NGS.
Yeah. Do you want to move on to characters?
Yeah, you can talk about the heroes.
You talked about team comp already. They have a kind of typical team comps, but they like to win on characters they play a lot. Sonya has a really good win rate. Greymane has a really good win rate, and Mal'Ganis has a okay win rate. But he's also very countable, so he's kind of a risky first pick tank. But we'll see how the meta changes a bit after his changes. So I would argue that they seem to do well on aggression, like Greymane, Sonya, and Mal'Ganis, all kind of aggressive tanks, and that works out for them in the stats.
And it's also important to know that Sonya is their favorite offlane by far. I know this small image doesn't fully show things.
Yeah.
But a lot of the offlanes are very far lower when the offlanes are played.
Okay, so maps. They have a really small map pool. They have 7 games on Infernal Shrines, which is a lot of games. And they kind of fairly even win rates across those maps. So maybe map doesn't matter too much in terms of impacting their win or loss. Maybe it's more just in draft and how they build.
I would be interested to see for example, we see the lower plane maps, the win rate's a little lower, specifically on Sky Temple and BOE. So I would be curious what the other 4 maps, because they can't ban 4 maps. win rates would be on. So like we're missing Volskaya, we're missing two, we're missing Braxis. Although apparently everyone bans Braxis, so we're not seeing that. I don't know what the final map we're missing is. Ultrac, I think. Yeah, Ultrac. So I'm curious to see what their win rates would be on that. They typically ban Volskaya and Tomb as common bans. So maybe you're not seeing those two, but again, they can't ban 4 maps, so might be worth, especially if you are struggling against them and need the win for that last playoff game. Maybe try taking them to one of those maps.
All right,
Yeah.
cool. I think that's enough on the one tricks. Can we move on to the third seed team, Jailbait?
Jailbait. And it's important to note that if you go to the website, Jailbait is shown as 4th and One Tricks is 3rd. But that's just because they're tied in points, and the website doesn't sell ties. Never tell. This is Smiley's team, so never call Smiley a 4th place season 9 B East team. He'll get mad. Yeah, you can see in chat he's already mad because we're suggesting the idea of the notion.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Jailbait, started out really strong but dropped not series but games to weaker teams. Jailbait really liked going to game 3, if I recall. It was just a hobby of theirs that they sort of picked up halfway through for whatever reason.
They want the more games to pad their stats. It's clearly what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly. And they want the practice. They knew they could get the win, so they just lost the middle game. But they had their fair share of dominations too. Yeah, so they did get some bad losses though. I think Roomba beat them, and 2-0, and I think someone else beat them. They've only dropped 2 sets though, so the real ranking of being this low on the top 3 is more because of dropping games than dropping series.
Yeah, but I think that speaks to a bit of consistency over the season.
No, it's very impressive. That
definitely not dropping series to any weak teams. I believe, and and then beating us 2-0 was, I think, a big win at the end of the season.
Got the walk of shame.
We don't want to talk too much about that.
No. We should accuse them of subbing players.
Yeah. That's our go-to when we lose badly. We just start crying about it.
So they lost to. Sorry, I'm just trying. They lost to Roomba. I'm trying to see if they lost to anybody else. They might have not dropped another series. Did they? I don't think they did. So maybe props to them. Maybe we're just spreading false information. Oh, they lost to Tricky Gooses here. So yeah, Roomba rotation 6th place, and Tricky Goose is 2nd. Yeah, tiny. Thanks, Smile.
But as we mentioned, Roomba has that potential to be any team. So I don't think them being 6th is truly fair to what their skill cap is. I wouldn't hold it against any team losing to Roomba.
Tricky Gooses is the same. Tricky Gooses, you never know what you're getting. So, you could see anything, even a Samaru, Abathur, Uther comp, which they've done multiple times.
Yeah.
But yeah, impressive season from them. So they really deserve to be in their spot. They are also an older team. I think it's commonly stated that Jailbait has been a B's forever team for multiple seasons. And yeah, again, shout out to Smiley for doing the stats and help running the league. We see him a lot in the caster chat too. Yeah, and when we faced them, we discovered they're good at doing counter draft, although that's more of a notion.
Yeah. So in terms of their heroes, if I can go into that now, Silver.
No. The last thing that the last thing I just wanted to bring up is that there were a few situations, specifically in the games they lost, that it looked like they were a little tilted. So that's just something to look out for them to see if you can maybe do that if you want to win.
Get them on tilt.
Specifically in the games against especially in games against Roomba, although they may have fixed that and noticed it. I don't know. It's a month-old data now.
Yeah.
But yeah, seeing if you can get them on tilt, break their pace. Yeah. DB Smiley saying I'm incredibly easy to tilt. So there's proof. Anecdotal proof.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say, especially in games which they started winning, and then they lose a team fight, and then it's kind of it kind of snowballs against them. That's when I really notice it. So yeah, maybe I don't know. It's kind of hard to just tell. Oh, just put them on tilt, but that might be something you notice in game, and maybe push harder.
Some interesting stuff to note though about the team. They have taken the most damage of any other team comparatively in the playoffs. Like they take a beating, you know. Maybe
Yeah,
that's
I feel
by
for their tanks
themselves.
sometimes. It looks like
Oh,
all of the damage is like going onto their tanks a lot, and I think that's
they have
because
the
they play pick
continue.
comps a lot too. I've noticed, or like kind of around like a tank's setting up and all focusing on one target kind of stuff, which
Mhm.
lends to your tanks getting a beating just because they're the ones engaging and putting themselves in there. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah,
Um, well, other things which we had to speed up a little bit. Liddell were behind schedule.
yes,
They're the worst time by 10 by a small margin, but compared to other teams in these higher rankings, that's like noticeable because it's only compared to the worst that they're the lowest time to 10 by a small margin.
yeah.
They also have low camp uptime, especially compared to higher seeded teams, and they have a low first keep win percentage. Most teams tend to have 95% win average if they can get the first keep. Jailbait has about 78, so sometimes they don't finish capitalizing off that win. It's also the other interesting thing is if they get the first objective, they only have a 56% win rate, which is basically like means if they get it, it's still a coin flip of who wins. That first objective is not really a play in favor of them winning the game, which is very interesting. And the last thing, because there's a lot of Jailbait loves being the best or the worst at things. Clearly, is they have a larger than average game length. And that might play to like blown leads. That might play to them staying in the game and catching up. But you can expect late game heroes to be essential versus Jailbait.
So in terms of the team comps that they love a Bloodlust Rhaegar. I don't think there's a single team in B East that loves a Bloodlust Rhaegar as much as them. Um, they also play ETC a lot, and that converts into a really high win rate. I think what we're seeing here from this little screen is that characters they get a lot, they win a lot on, which I feel like I'm saying a lot tonight, although it's kind of important to note when you don't win on characters you play a lot. But clearly ETC, high win rate, Rhaegar, really high win rate. Frag Stella loves Sylvanas, but he's also
Yeah.
a sneaky Zul'jin player from my experience. So that's something to watch out for in the playoffs, I would say.
Yeah.
And then
And
H,
Smiley wants to say that he plays Bloodlust. So he doesn't do Bloodlust every time. He likes Ancestral too. I
I
think that's a
and
fair point.
that's a testament to a really good like I
Rhaegar.
guess really good Rhaegar and like not just always going with what the meta is, so to speak, and actually pivoting when the bloodlust gets countered or you actually get more value from the ancestral. So yeah,
That's it.
I wouldn't say Rhaegar is a one trick bloodlust on their team, but I do see they kind of go for Rhaegar, and I would imagine they have bloodlust in mind a lot of the time when they pick Rhaegar, but then they know when to pivot. So that's like yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good
And
distinction.
And speaking as someone who faced Jailbait last season, I will attest to DB Smiley liking the Rhaegar for a long time.
Yeah,
So
not just the
he
new
played
bloodlust
Rhaegar
meta.
before it was cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's the OG Rhaegar.
Um,
Uh, and do you want to just go over the maps real quick?
Maps real
Just
quick.
about
What's sticking out is like those low played games, 100% win rate on BOE, Cursed Hollow, Sky Temple, which is kind of interesting. Big fans of Tomb of the Spider Queen, um, which I have the least analysis for because we hate that map. Not to spoil
yeah.
any of the
Spoil our bands. Yeah.
yes, yeah. But anyone can look it up, and we'll probably say it ourselves when we get to our team.
In fact, the 2 second analysis said that.
Yeah.
The beat chat.
And so, yeah, in terms of maps, like, and I guess they have a pretty wide map pool, but then they really like Volskaya,
Mhm.
by Tomb, and Infernal Shrines a lot. Although low win rate on Infernal Shrine, so maybe it's not their favorite, but that's the effect of it ever being other people's favorites and that
Yeah.
leading to a lower win rate because they get taken
And we'll
there a
comment
lot.
on this a little later, but it's also very interesting to see the different maps between the divs. And like we have a theory behind why that is, which we'll go into obviously. But yeah, Infernal's I think the most popular map of Beast. And DB Smiling going, we only pick that map when we have to, which I think is a lot of people's, or at least who I've talked to, opinion of Infernal, as it's the good map when your maps are banned and there's nothing else.
It's
Kind
kind
of
of
the
the
default.
vanilla, like, I guess I'll go there. I don't hate it. I don't love it. It's just
Yeah,
happening
neutral.
kind of thing. Yeah.
All right, and
Um,
so when it comes to map bans, and I think also just how they ban in draft two a little, is it's a little more what is the other team good at, ton of bans. So they have 6 bans on Dragonshire, 5 bans on Cursed Hollow, 4 on Sky Temple, 4 on Towers of Doom, 3 on Ultrarag, and that's spread out bans really tell me that like they're not afraid to go to any map. They just don't want you to go to some map. So, expect your best maps to be banned when facing jailbait, and probably your players too. If you have any one tricks,
a lot of the bans are target bans on other
one
people's
tricks hate
favorites.
them.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, I had to make the low hanging joke.
All right. You want to move on to some tricky times?
Yeah, tricky. You can start this one because I
Oh
know you
man,
want to talk about them.
we've started our entire next Heroes Lounge. Oh, I think I'm not allowed to say that. That's my bad.
No, whatever. It's okay.
I've already done it. We've based our entire next season in Random League around memeing. And that has come from Tricky Gooses. They are the memers of B East. We love their memes.
They're an inspiration to us all.
We can't get enough of their memes. We watch every one of their games and we go, how one day can we meme like these guys? They've pulled off some ridiculous comps. They've pulled off ABBA, Samaru stuff with an Ufa, no main tank. I think Jaina was thrown in there. They've done a lot of Butcher Ufa, no main tank comps too recently. They really like that.
And to answer your question is they like to shift up their memes. So like if you do look at they're not going to be the most played, but like they do have a considerable amount of games on Butcher if I recall. I think it was like 3 or 4. They have a decent amount of games on Samaru. You gotta vary your memes, as they say, and of course they don't meme every game. I think we're being a little over exaggerated, but they definitely are the meme team of the B.
Yeah, and I've seen them get to go back to the Dive Vision comments. I've seen them kind of get memed on sometimes, and I think they're so used to living in a meme world that they sometimes they get thrown off by it, and I think they've actually lost some games which I've seen. And also, I have a pretty broad definition of meme. I should also say, like. I think anything that's like pretty off meta.
Maeve is a meme to you.
Yeah, I would agree. Especially
but just to give some stats to us, they have 4 games on Butch with a 75% win rate. They got a started Hammer game with 0. They have 4 games on Samaru with 50% win rate. They have 2 games on Maeve, 100%. 2 games on ABBA, 50%. Try to see if there's anything else. I think that's most of it, but especially how they draft the team comps sort of make the memes stand out extra memey.
And it should say, like, it doesn't take that many meme comps to become a meme team, because obviously if you do it every game, people are going to see...
Apparently.
Go ahead, Sylvan.
We've been... Maeve is not a meme, according to multiple people in chat. So,
well, I'll have a long argument about that. I think she's a meme in that she's off-meta, but she has the high potential of a high skill player to kind of control the game, and it becomes very much a Maeve game when Maeve's picked. And I think you have a hard time fitting that into a normal team comp, because you don't really know how Maeve is going to fit in what role specifically. Because I've seen teams still do a normal tank, a normal offlaner, and then Maeve, and then not have enough damage.
You know what? We're not going to have this argument right now. The chat is against us. I don't see us winning here. Being mobbed by the swarm. Okay, you know what? You can't deny Butch is not a meme. You can't deny.
Can't take Abba Samo as
yeah. You can't take Hammer as not a meme, at least at this point.
Yeah.
We stand by what we say. Fine. Take our Maeve away. I know what Abba Sam is a top tier strat, but I guess maybe it's gimmicky is what we say is meme.
My definition of meme, just to be clear, so we could get this done once and for all, is just it's meme when it's off meta and it completely changes how a normal hero's game is played. You pick Abba, it changes everything. You have 1 less hero. You pick Samaru, you have 2 extra heroes everywhere, constantly unkillable if you're really good, like Nanani is. Shout out to their kind of meme captain on Tricky Gooses. So that's what I mean by it. Like, if it completely changes how the game's played, I consider it memey, and that's how we're using that definition. So.
They're also finding the gaps in our definition with they're calling EDC a meme. You know what? We're gonna move on. We don't. You know what? Instead of losing this argument, we're just gonna leave. I think that's the right play.
Listen, and we're not discouraging arguing in our chat. I love it. Yeah, fight all you want.
Yeah.
Uh, so
But you know what? The chat's united, so I don't know if they're fighting
they're
themselves.
just fighting us.
Uh,
So
yeah.
that might not.
Let's walk away.
Yeah.
Yeah, we know to cut our losses, as they say.
Yeah.
But anyway, we consider them a meme team. Just to sort of move along a little, they do wild things in draft, like not drafting a tank or maybe a main tank Uther, which is a few seasons past its prime. Again, shout out to Nanami. He plays most of the memes. I don't think all of them, but the majority. And they're second seed team, so their season's been pretty good. They have a lot of great wins. They have dropped some losses against much lower ranked teams, though.
Yeah.
They are a little. They are definitely the most inconsistent of the higher ranked teams. I think they dropped games against Die for Vision. I think they lost twice against. I think that's what got Die for Vision the giant killer title, at least in our team.
Yeah.
They lost against Dirton's Couch, the 8th seed. Yeah. So, they lost against 7th and 8th seed. So the fact that they're second might be a detriment to them because they typically lose to the lower seeds.
Yeah. I think that may just be a factor of when you play off meta stuff and you do kind of riskier team comps, that there's just that potential to it doesn't hit. You're kind of shooting for the stars on things aligning, and it's kind of harder to pull off. I notice most casters often pick the more easy to execute team comp to win post draft, and Tricky doesn't often play by those rules in my opinion. So
yeah,
there's
something that we like to discuss called idiot proof strategies, which is not like like we're not insulting the people that do them, but as Liddell said, execute easy strategies. So for example, Kel'Thas's Pyroblast is we call idiot proof. Just because, you click it, it throws the ball of fire, and then it goes. Well, Phoenix technically involves a little more strategy. And, it's not a day they choose Pyroblast. Pyroblast is good, but the low execution strategy is like a plus to that team kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, Tricky says, fuck being idiot proof. We want to go with the wild thing that causes a lot of skill, and they can clearly pull it off.
Yeah. And then when we look at the top played heroes, obviously you see a lot of tanks because there's not a really. I mean, if you're not picking the meta tanks right now, you're putting your team at a huge disservice, in my opinion. So obviously you see a lot of ETC and Joanna, and that's turned into huge win rates for them. They like Leo. Leo's really good right now, in my opinion, as a solo laner, and that's also a high win rate. And then Greymane, that's a ridiculous win rate. I've been saying this a lot, but the characters they play a lot, they win a lot on. But this is like times 2 to when I normally say that.
I think especially because they play inconsistent characters, they don't see a lot. The characters that they do have are comfort picks, so you'll typically see like 1 or 2 characters you almost never see again, and then the other 3 will be their comfort picks to sort of shorten the gaps with that. Some other fun facts about Tricky Gooses is they have typically very low hero damage, and they're not a very brawly team to sort of compound that. So maybe picking a more tanky team or a more team based off sustained team fights might be to your advantage. They have very good camp up time. That might be due to the super macro people they typically pick, such as Samaru and Leoric and Double Soak, as well as I think they usually in ABBA will always be getting experience. And the other thing to know is they have a fairly low first objective win rate. So if they get the first objective, that's no guarantee that the game's over in their favor. It's especially low compared to like other teams in the top 4 of the season.
Right. Onto maps. They love going to Coast. 7 games, by far their most played map. Closest is 3 games, and that's pretty evenly split out across the rest of their maps. And a really high win rate. I think this goes into, even if they're not memeing every game, I think Cursed Hall is the type of map where it's open to doing off-meta stuff, because the objective's so slow to pay off. You have till level 10 before first objective hits, and you can do so much to gain value. Many teams will lose first objective, but they already have a fort or 2 because they've been completely doing a macro strategy on Cursed, and that plays really into what they want, right?
And sort of adding to this meme thing, like against us, like the game we lost to them on Cursed Hollow, I think they chose 5 globals. I think it was like Brightwing, False Dead, Dahaka, ETC with his level 10 global. I think there was one more too. So clearly not afraid to like burst the meta bubble with like a random strategy you haven't seen before.
And it left us questioning because everywhere we go, we think we're safe, and then suddenly 5 people show up out of the sky, and it's chaos. And so it works really well. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you can watch us flounder in that game if you want. I'd advise against it because we lost, but you know.
We were definitely lost at the end of that game. We were like,
yeah,
we were never safe. There was nowhere safe on the map.
The Haka from underground, you know, ETC from the sky. Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, if you get enough globals, it becomes a meme. You know, like I think can't say 5 globals is typical.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get away from that conversation though.
Do you want to any last thoughts before we move on to ourselves?
Yeah. So bans for map bans.
Yeah.
They always ban Battlefield of Eternity. I think it's the map that's hard. Like that's very hard to pull off like niche strategies. I could be wrong in that analysis, but I think Battlefield of Eternity, especially because immortal damage is so prioritized. Typically, a lot of strategies you can do on other maps typically don't work on that one. And then the second ban is usually a target ban. Most often it's Volskaya, but you can bet that if you have your highest win rate map or most played map, it will be banned against pieces.
Okay, moving on to Tiny Dances. Silva,
Yes.
How did the Tiny Dances season go?
It went very well. You know, we are just sort of like the best team. You know, as mentioned in the chat, you know, no one's going to analyze us. You know, we're just going to admit what's true, that we're the best team, number 1 seed. We're going to win the grand champions, you know.
All jokes aside, all jokes aside, I will say we definitely didn't expect the success we got going into this season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sadly, one of our roster members had to drop out, and we actually changed all our roles like a week before the season started. And it just things clicked really well. And I think having that first season last year really helped us learn some stuff. And I would argue overall, like Beast maybe got a bit easier this season over last season, just because a lot of the top teams moved up, and I think a lot of normal C teams moved up into B.
I'm happy. I'm happy we're facing this season because I think next season will be a lot more competitive with C teams finally.
I think it just takes one season to adjust to a new meta of a division, and then you can kind of really figure out what your place in that division is.
I agree.
In terms of how we did, I think we were a bit surprised by it. We're not going to give all the secrets away to our strategies and everything, but I think anyone who watches 2 of our games will find out we love double tank. I don't think there's a secret there.
We have a spoiled backline. Is the secret.
Yeah, we have a complaining backline anytime they get touched.
Yeah, we have 2 double tanks, and they still say not enough peels.
Yeah, we were just all over it. I think maybe while we're on characters, we should also shout out our healer, Materium. Saves us thick and thin. He has really good stats this season to go along with, I think, his really strong play. You know, and I think this is 2 seasons in a row which Tiny Dances has been blessed with really strong healers that heal a lot. So lucky for the front line, I guess.
No, and also shout out to Carpe Diem from Tricky Gooses for being a really good playmaker as a healer. If you look at his stats, they're fairly low for a healer, but like he makes up with that with the plays he makes as a healer. You know, he will get the healing to the people who's.
So in terms of, we do the double tank a lot in terms of our strategy. Our season went pretty well. Main losses came from Jailbait in the last week, which is top 3 team. Tricky, top 2 teams. Maybe we suffer a little bit from top talent in the division. And then we also lost some games in the second half of the season, but some insider info, we basically, once we realized we were definitely making the playoffs, we wanted to get away a little bit from our double tank and be less pigeonholed into that. And so I think we had some growing pains where we lost games to middling teams, solely for the reason that we just were trying something out. And maybe we could have done better if we were doing our full try-hard strategy, but I think that might serve us well as we go to playoffs, that we've had a bit more experience with different comps.
To put this a little more on traditional things, we are a slower and passive team, so you shouldn't expect a lot of early aggression. And we're more of a team that's built on capitalizing off of our opponent's mistakes than making big plays.
But the stats go against that, Silva, because we actually have really excellent stats when we win early. So kind of we were looking those over and kind of surprised by how high they were. We were like, maybe we should pick early game characters more. maybe
Yeah,
that might help us. So you know.
yeah.
Um,
And anyway, as you can see here by the stats, we like our characters, which we play.
yeah,
You can see, Kel'Thas at 11, Anduin at 10, and Lunar at 10, all with high win rates.
yeah.
And yeah,
Kel'Thas really
and I
sticking out
think
there. High win
it's
rate.
also important to note, which I think we forgot to, we are working with Stats of the Storm for most of this, and the last week's games have not been entered to this stuff.
Yeah.
But keep in mind, this is a week out of date, because I lost a Garrosh game against Jailbait. So that should be 8 and not 100%.
Yeah. Do
Right.
you want to move on? Let's move on now to maps, shall we? Uh,
Yep.
we, we like to play maps pretty evenly. I think that's
Mhm.
partly because we kind of like some of the non most picked maps. And so we kind of get taken to the popular maps and kind of go to the less popular maps. But
It's
it's pretty
important to
even
note.
spread for sure.
I was instructed in Div B chat to say though our bans are Tomb, Braxis, and what was that? Temple.
Example,
So we
yeah,
ban Braxis and Tomb frequently, and then Temple is the third.
yeah, and
And
that's
I have to say that because I was
yeah. We want to be
forced.
fair to whoever helped us out. I'm forgetting their name.
Yeah,
And we
I
should
should wrote that
pass
down.
on what they say our weaknesses are.
Pass on their wisdom of a 2-second hero's profile look.
Yeah.
You're all welcome.
Any last stats you have on this, so before we should stop? Loving over our own team.
No, we have high healing per game. I guess that's the match out you said. We do have the second worst time for first fort, so like that's sort of a play into our lack of aggression. Although if we like get the lead, I think we just stick to it.
Yeah.
And we have the best camp up time, so we're clearly more macro game focused.
Yeah. Okay. Let's do the playoff bracket right now, and then we'll finish off with your fun wacky
fun
stats
facts and,
before we go to Div B West.
Okay.
So I have here the bracket prediction, and we should preface it first that we both chose Tiny Dancer's losing, not because we think it will happen or what we put none of our own opinions in. We just automatically gave ourselves the loss, just because we wanted to be more fair and kind of not biased doing this. So we just automatically gave ourselves a loss and then did the bracket from there.
Yeah, it's also important to note that Liddell thinks we're gonna lose. It's gonna be 2-1 loss. Well, I think it's an 0-2. Yeah. So a real difference there.
So I'll go over mine first, and then you can counter me with what you think I got wrong and how yours is different. So round one, I am choosing Comfortably Numb over One Tricks. Main reason here, the unknown Spectre factor, which is their carry, who hasn't played a ton of games, and I just feel like as an unknown, I feel like the fairly equal teams, I would maybe give the One Tricks throughout the season as the better team, but with that unknown, I think I'm gonna lead and guess that Uncomfortably Numb wins. In terms of Jailbait versus Roomba, I'm giving Roomba the 2 over Jailbait. I think they have another gear to give in playoffs. We saw that gear last year in the playoffs, and I think they have the ability to kind of really turn it on and go to a different level. And also they say all season they don't care about seeding, so I don't hold the 6 seed against them. And for Die for Vision, I wanted to be a bit controversial, get the chat going, hopefully get some controversy going. I chose Die for Vision over Tricky Gooses. 2-1 though this time, over than the 2-0 they had early in the season. And that's just because I think Die for Vision has that kind of ability to beat a really good team. I think Tricky Gooses have the ability to lose to bad teams, and of all the upsets, I think they have the biggest likelihood for the upset. And I wanted to start a bit of controversy for the bracket. Moving on to round 2, Uncomfortably Numb beats Dirton's Couch. I think they're the highest seed. I think they have a good chance of winning. Roomba Rotations over Die for Vision, because I think Roomba Rotations can play well and really capitalize on weaker teams in team fights and really kind of secure kills and turn those into big advantages. And then I had Roomba Rotations over Uncomfortably Numb in round 3 for similar reasons of why I've talked about Roomba Rotations already.
So you're officially a Roomba Rotations lover, I see. As Synchrony is pointing out.
Yeah. We want to get back in the good books after talking about subs earlier,
Yeah. Well, maybe you. Clearly, I have them out fairly on second round. Yeah. So I agree with a lot of your reasoning there. I don't think especially our top half is very similar. I think Uncomfortably Numb with Spectre has the upper hand against One Tricks. I put that as a 2-1 though. Like I really see that going both ways, and it's like a slight victory to Uncomfortably Numb's side. I think the ball's a little bit in One Trick's playfield. I did think Jailbait loses 1-2 to the Roomba, more so because, as you mentioned with the Roomba, it's more about a playstyle matchup than a skill, in my opinion. I think especially in the games that Jailbait lost to Roomba, Roomba was able to tilt them. They were able to find a few picks. I think Jailbait has the potential to win, only if they tighten up their play a lot. And it will really just depend on, like, can Roomba get those, break the cracks open from Jailbait.
I'd
And
put that series down to like after each game's draft, I think I could confidently pick the winner after that. I think it's all about the chess matches they play against each other in those drafts. Does Roomba get the strategy they want, or does Jailbait pick enough counters and thwart it enough that they can win the series? So I'm gonna put it down to drafting on that one. Yeah.
Yeah. Although I also agree. Like I think like as we saw in if anyone watched the first game of Jailbait and Roomba, like Jailbait actually was going to win. It looks like the victory was very much at hand, and then Roomba managed to find a few picks of or extended characters. So I would politely disagree with you. I think it's more about can Roomba pull off their strategy, which might not be decided in draft.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I had not an upset. Tricky beating Die for Vision. I think Tricky has tightened its game up a little towards the end of the series, and they are not looking for a repeat of Die for Vision. I think I would be more comfortable if Tricky lost this series, personally, but I don't think that's the reality. And again, I had Tricky winning over Roomba because I think, again, it's more of a playstyle matchup with Roomba, at least from what I've seen. I mean, Roomba's fully fine to prove me wrong. But I think Tricky will throw Roomba for a spin, and they won't know which way to rotate. And then I have Uncomfortably Numb being Durton's couch. You know, I think Uncomfortably Numb is a fairly strong team, especially Spectre. I think their brawling ability is also increased heavily, and Durton's couch is a little bit more of a brawly team. So I think Uncomfortably Numb will win that fight. And then I do think that Tricky Gooses will beat Uncomfortably Numb as well and take the victory for B East because Tricky Gooses, I think, can basically, I think they're a better brawly team, and I think Uncomfortably Numb will not have the right answers with their memes, especially because I think their carry player plays one or two characters. But if they can counter the meme, they do have the chance to win. It'll be an exciting series. I also realized that we put I only did 2-1 there, so that's my bad. I think that's supposed to be 3-2. I'm not used to these series best of fives.
Yeah.
Did be Uncomfortably Numb beat Tricky? They might have, yeah. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Uncomfortably Numb's the victor. Yeah. Why don't I put that? That's more exciting. Screw Tricky.
Yeah. So those are brackets. Argue all you want. Reach out to me in Div B if you want the website. And there's tons of websites like this you can do brackets. But I think it'd be fun if people posted a bunch of brackets in the Div B chat. Yeah. So those are the main takeaways about Division B East. Do you want to go over some of the fun stats now, Silver, or do you want to do them all at the end? Silver, I may have lost you again. I don't think it was my internet. I think your phone Discord is muted you. You've been on too long. So while I'm waiting for Silver to come back once again, I'll just, as we head into B West, just disclaimer, we did not watch nearly as many games as we should have to do an analysis of Division B East. So we focus much more on stats, and we also would find it dishonest if we did a mock-up bracket, just because I don't think it would be fair to the teams based on how well we know them and how they match up together. But if you are a Division B West fan, do stick around. We're gonna go over some stats, and I think maybe some stats that you may not have looked at or may not have thought about going into your own pre-scout. So Silva's kind of screwing me over here because he's kind of the lead guy on all of the stat stuff. But I'll quickly go to the standings. Just switch it over to B West. And let me go to stats of the Storm here. So the first team we were gonna analyze is Spooky Ghosts. I also apologize. I didn't have enough time to fully do all the nice graphic cards for B West, so I'll have a mixture of this up with the standings and the stats breakdown. Um, Initial reactions for Spooky Ghost is they play a lot of maps really evenly. This is also missing out the last week, which I think they had a really big turnaround in their season and played a lot of games. Unfortunately, we don't have the stats for that. So the analysis is a bit off in that regard. Yes, so just a bit of chat interaction here. Synchrony, I totally agree that I love best of fives, and I think an entire playoff of it would be pretty fun. Just because you get a really taste of the other team in a best of five, really get to know them, and kind of you get by game 5 if it goes that long, you're really just playing mind games at that point. Yeah. In terms of Spooky Ghosts, they have 60% win rate on Ana, which is quite good, and I think at least B East, who's a very underplayed healer a lot of the time, and so that win rate is kind of impressive. I don't think Silva knows he can't be heard. I'm not sure. That's really great. This is why Tiny Dances is breaking up next season, because we can't stay united as a front line together, because he's always pissing off and not following me. That's yeah. Okay. So hopefully he'll come back with some Spooky Ghost stats as we move on.
Oh, hello.
So you're back. We got you back.
Yes. Okay, I apologize for that.
I've already moved on to B West, so why don't we do all of the fun facts at the end?
Okay, you just skip the fun facts? Okay.
Yeah, because the way I have my setup, I didn't want to go into the doc and everything. So
Okay.
I'm on Spooky Ghosts right now. I've gone over characters, I've gone over maps. So what stats do you have me on Spooky Ghosts?
So Spooky Ghost has the least hero damage in B West. So obviously they don't deal a lot of damage. So maybe again, as we mentioned earlier, maybe more tanky teams with more consistent damage might be good against them. They have a very high win rate if they've taken first fort. But interesting enough, they have a much lower win rate if they've taken first keep. So clearly they win more if the game's not even and there's back and forth. It's just a very weird stat contrast to sort of talk about. Well, you have a higher first fort win percentage than a first keep win percentage, or just as the same. Other things to know, yeah, and I think that's they also have the highest average till first fort, so that might play into this weird stat. Yeah, and then you want to go into heroes.
Yeah, so for Spooky, I've done heroes already, and I've done maps as well. So if that's it for stats, we're on Phoenix
did you mention
Rising.
the bands?
Not the bands. Yeah.
Spooky Ghost hates Dragon and Dragonshire and Sky Temple. You're not going to go to those with them. It's just a fact. So sorry for this connection. All right.
Yeah. So I'm on Phoenix Rising Onyx now.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So have you talked about the seasons of B West at all?
I mean, you've teased it earlier. I haven't, but it's basically along the lines of kind of predictable wins and losses in terms of.
If a team's ranked higher, they typically beat the lower one. Yeah. There are few exceptions, but primarily those exceptions are only in the bounds of 1. So sometimes 4th place will beat 3rd place, 5th place will beat 4th place. Very big upsets, as you can see.
Yeah.
But typically, if you're within 1 range, with I think only 1 exception, you're not going to beat people much higher than you or lose to people much lower than you. I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but consistency is key, say.
Yeah.
Key does the stats.
Phoenix Rising Onyx, they love themselves some Joanna. They love themselves some Ana. Let me just move down to the stats of the storm here. They, have fairly good win rates on characters they win a lot, which is impressive because they don't have a terribly high win percentage. We see the 44 over here. And so we see a lot of their more played characters much higher than that. So it really comes down to their last player characters really driving down that win percentage. And then we also see a very even spread with a pretty even win percentage spread on maps. So that's my analysis there.
Yep, I agree. As bans come, they ban Braxis mostly with 9 games, and Towers of Doom with 9 bans each alone. So there's a reason those maps aren't there on the list. I think all other maps are. Yeah, and yeah, obviously, like, we're not part of B West, and we haven't watched a lot of B West games, so our analysis will be mostly stat based. I'm not sure if you mentioned that.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I covered that.
Other thoughts, as they are, even though they are something interesting also to note about B West, at least stat wise, is the KDA. A lot of the lower teams tend to have the best KDA, which is a very interesting thing that you want to expect from teams that lose more by virtue of them being lower seeded. So Phoenix Rising Onyx actually is tied for the best KDA in the league, at least according to Stats at the Storm. I don't know if it shows that here in your visual, Liddell.
Yeah, I'm on KDA right now. So.
Yeah, so it's not by too much, but do they? Okay, maybe Arrogant Nephilim have 1.4.
Yeah, they have 1.4, but I guess the point you're making is it's very even KDA from 1 to 7. Like there's a slight difference, but if you look at the difference between that and Division B East, like it's clear like pretty rank of KDA getting pretty much lower as the teams go down on the seeding. So it's just like an interesting difference that like kills didn't seem to matter for top teams nearly as much as they did in Division B East.
Yeah, and it looks like my KDA stat was wrong. They have 1.1 on your visual here. I don't know where I was looking. All right. But yeah, so that's just interesting stuff. Other interesting stats about Phoenix Rising Onyx is that they actually lose more when they get the first objective. They have a 44% win rate. But they have a 90% win rate when they get the first fort and a 100% win rate when they get the first keep. So clearly, like, if they get a structured advantage, they're almost always likely to win the game and keep it. So if you could deny them that, though, they'll lose the game. It's very much a make or break based on the early game for Phoenix Rising Onyx.
All right. If you're done there, we can move on to, I think it's Avalanche.
It's Avalanche as the sixth seed.
Yeah.
They did have a bad loss to one lower team. They lost to, sorry, I don't know the names of B West off the top of my head. I apologize. They lost to Die Gaming, which was the 9th seed, which is a big upset. 6th losing to 9th, at least in B
West standards.
West. Yeah. BE standards of inconsistency. It's not the Wild West and B West. It's the Wild East. So, and they did beat Soak Every Lane, which is I think higher than them. It's the only notes to point out in their season. Inconsistent. But they also love going to game 3. So if you're facing them, don't expect a domination. Yeah. They stats go, they have the 3rd best KDA and the 2nd most kills, so like they're very a bloodthirsty team. But they also have like a very low hero pool. I think they have 31, which is the 2nd smallest of overall. And they have a low keep win rate as well as first fort win rate. So, they don't like their their structures.
Yeah.
It's literally the exact opposite of the previous team.
Yeah. I'll move quickly into some heroes. Not a ton of interesting stuff to point out, other than like a 28% win rate on Greymane over 7 games and a 33% on Li Ming. Quite low win rates. They clearly don't like their Greymane player because he just gets beat up, I guess, every game. With only a 2.6 KDA. So I think maybe something to point out, because I think that's one of the lower win rates we've seen today on a really often played character. And then Ming also being quite low, going against. I think she has a pretty high win rate overall in both the divisions. I haven't looked at the stats. I'm not looking at the stats right now in terms of that. But yeah, 33%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then in terms of, they really love 50% or 0% or 100% win rates on maps. That's my analysis there.
Very deep.
Yeah.
Other things to point out is they have one of the weakest times in all of Div B to level 10. The average time in B West is about 7 minutes and 5 seconds to level 10. Their average is 6 minutes and 30 seconds. And keep in mind, it's only the average that's 7 minutes and 5 seconds, so a lot of teams are higher than that. So they're actually like a minute slower to 10 than most other teams or higher teams in the league. It's really not a stat you want to see. But other than that, I think a lot of their stats indicate they are a team fight team. And chat, who knows better, can correct me if I'm wrong. Who've seen the games, and if they can get that first objective, and if they can get that like first blood, they will be doing well. That's how they like snowball their advantage. Not through structures. It's not through macro or experience. Through kills.
Alright. Soak every lane? Ready for it?
Yeah. You can soak every lane. You're the off laner.
I would love to. I would honestly play a version of Heroes in which there's no other heroes, and I just go and soak all 3 lanes.
Wow. I'm sure every other solo laner empathizes with you, and only them.
Yeah, that'd be a really interesting stream actually if I just did that. So soak every lane. They love themselves some Reyna and some Stukov.
Yeah.
14 games on Reyna. That might be the highest today of any one character.
It is.
And a good win rate to go with it. So maybe ban that Reyna. Take it away from them.
Yep. Also important to note that they are, I would say, a meme team. Dare I say it?
Oh no! Don't blow it up again.
They have Vikings 3 games with 100%, Samaru with 1, Murky, Cho'Gall game, and 2 Gazlo games. And damn, if you call any Gazlo game not a meme, I will. Goddamn. We're ending the stream here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think those are more defined memes. I think Cho'Gall, Murky, and Gazlo, Viking, Samaru. But wow, in the chat, clearly just trying to trigger. Yeah, but other than that, they play the same characters a lot. I think it's similar to Tricky, where they have they have like some memes that they'll pull out of their bag, but other than that, they have a lot of close pick comfort picks that they're constantly going to. So like that is the Raynor, that is the Stukov. Again, they have I think a Joanna with 8 and ETC with 6 as their main tanks, as most tanks are.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm getting insulted in the chat. Okay, 100% of the memes. Oh, Gazlo. Okay, it's just Gazlo talk. The most controversial character in Heroes.
I don't think so. I think every Gazlo has the exact same mind and they do the exact same thing. And I don't want to hurt this Gazlo player's feelings in chat, but you know who you are, you know what you do. And you know what every other Gazlo does. And you know that the best Storm League teammates always, and they're always in a good mood, and they always listen and cooperate with you. Right? So that's my take on Gazlo.
Yes, I 100% agree with that analysis. Gazlo's the best for sure. Especially as a tank, I just love them. They really follow.
Okay. They love 100% win rates on maps they don't play a lot. 3 games or less, all 100% win rates except for Battlefield of Eternity, which is interesting. I mean, they have a high win rate overall, and I think they dropped some games in the last week of the season that puts them down, so that's not showing in the stats right now. But I think that's pretty impressive that a lot of the places you don't go to often, you just win anyways. So definitely keep your other teams second guessing of where to take you.
Yeah, I agree. As their bans go, they have 9 bans on Dragonshire and 5 bans on Braxis and 5 bans on Towers of Doom. Basically, those last 2 are flexible depending on what the other team bans. Something interesting to note, another contrast between B East and B West. Battlefield of Eternity is a lot more popular in general in B West, while Towers of Doom is a popular map in B East. And so we'll see Towers of Doom not really picked much in B West. Well, Battlefield of Eternity, as you can see here, it's 3 where a lot of teams didn't even play on it, if not once. B East. Just an interesting contrast there. As well as Dragonshire. Not a lot of teams liking that, although that's a little more team dependent than but B West definitely hates Dragonshire more than B East. Oh, congrats on the 5 Gazlo bans. You're special. Yeah. So that's the most. So this is soak every lane, right?
Yeah. So we're on to bronze 6 now.
Well, before we go, just to point out a few things about soak every lane before we move on. They have the best camp uptime, which is not a surprise based on some of their memes. Tends to be more macro focused. They have a really high first objective win rate. Most teams have it like 50 or 60. They have 80.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really good.
They also have a extremely high first fort with 96% and first keep, which is 91. Weirdly lower than the first fort win rate.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know how that really works that well unless the game's very back and forth. But
Right, but those are
um,
really high conversion. I think that might be the
yeah,
highest conversion rates we
on first
saw
support.
through our research. Yeah. So
Yeah, so props to them. So really like know how to win with an advantage. So I would bet most of their losses come from losing the initial like momentum, but clearly able to capitalize on it if they gain it. So
uh,
just something to watch out for. I would recommend early game teams pretty clearly.
yeah,
Yeah. All right. So now we can move to bronze six, which are not
bronze,
bronze or in sixth place. Or the two teams to
liars all
lie
around.
in B West. Yeah, B West has a lot of liars. We'll delve into why a little very shortly.
So,
Um, yeah, accused.
um,
Yeah. You want to take this away now?
yeah. Looking at the heroes played. Love the Tracer games as a
Mm-hmm.
old ex Tracer uh main. I'm kind of upset. I'm kind of nostalgic looking at those Tracer games. 66% win
You were
rate's pretty
Tracer
good.
before she was cool and reworked.
Yes, I forced her to work. Dare I say, I forced a meme to work. I'm sure that won't blow up another more comments
Well,
about how.
Tracer I think was a meme before she got reworked a little.
Yeah.
But you know what? Let's move on quickly.
Yeah.
Uh,
And then also, I guess to be fair to all teams with low win rates on often played characters, you see 44% on Diablo, and I would say Diablo's a very off-meta tank right now. Not because he's
he's
bad.
not Joanna or DC.
Not because he's bad, but just because Joanna and ETC are such clear meta picks right now, meta favorites. That and Garrosh is kind of in the lower, like one level down. So it's interesting that they see the Diablo, but they really want to make it work. With 9 games played on him and only 44%. But it may be an old remnant from a time of when he was more viable, I would argue.
It's important to note also that Bronze 6 beat Abba Murky Cult, which is in second place, which again is another upset in the series.
Huge upset.
Fourth place beating second. Yeah.
Can you believe the upsets in B West?
And they also lost to Phoenix Rising Onyx, which I think is a little bit actually more of an upset. I think they are 7th or 6th.
Yeah.
They're 7th place, yeah. And so
Getting a bit
fourth
more
loss to
interesting
7th.
there. Yeah.
Yeah. There's 3 place difference there, not 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some other things to interesting about Bronze 6, which a lot of their stats point to, and again, chat will have to correct us if they've seen otherwise in their maps, is that Bronze 6 does not have a good macro game. Their map bans are Volskaya. Their map bans are Krista Hollow and Sky Temple, 2 very macro-based maps where you have to be at multiple places at once. They have a very poor camp uptime with 3 minutes, the average being 5 minutes and 30 seconds. So 3 minutes means they have some much lower, which is questionable. But they do have a very high percent win rate of getting an early structure advantage. So I think they really capitalize off that EXP lead you get from structured advantages to win their games rather than through. Okay.
Yeah. So that's all you have to say about Bronze 6.
Do you want to go into the heroes a little?
I went a little bit into the heroes of the Diablo. I think other than that, they had pretty standard, average win rates on a lot of their heroes, pretty even win rates.
Mm-hmm.
And then similar thing with maps too. So I wouldn't say I have a lot of anything insightful to say in those 2 areas with these guys.
All right, so we can move on then to Arrogant Nephilim.
Arrogant Nephilim.
Yeah. So, just to cover over the upsets of the season, they lost to Bronze 6, the team we just talked about. Is a little, not that much of an upset, but they did beat Abba Murky Cult as well. So, again, not much of an upset, but just some interesting points, especially in a division where it's so if you're a higher seed, you've beaten most of the people under you. Just some things to note. But good season overall. They have a pretty small hero pool at 29 characters, and I think as the stats of the heroes will show, they sort of just pick the same heroes over and over again, and that's how they get their wins. They clearly have comfort picks that they will bring out, sort of predictably and repeatedly.
Yeah,
but,
you stole my analysis away from me a little bit there, because the characters they play a lot, they win a lot on, and that shows with 6 out of the top, sorry, 6 out of the top 7 have higher win rates than their total win rate overall, which is 76%. So like they consistently win more on characters that get to play a lot. So maybe the secret to countering them is somehow ban out their top 7 most played heroes with your free bans.
Yeah, just ban all of them. Ban all of them, pick the others. Some other notes is that they have a very high KDA, but it's mostly through less deaths and a higher than average kill rate.
Yeah.
So they clearly get their kills. They're more. I think that would tell you they're a little bit more of a pick team. Although again, chat can disagree if I'm wrong. Don't bully people, chat. Come on. And they also have the second lowest hero damage. So it's very interesting that they have above average kill with low hero damage, which again tells me they're more of a burst pick team kind of thing.
That's and that would check out for not dying as well. You get your pick, you don't team fight, and then you don't die.
Yeah, exactly.
In terms of maps, they have 100% win rate on 4 different maps, which is impressive. 66 on Infernal Shrines, which is a popular map. But then only a 25% on Dragonshire, so that's what's really dragging down their win rate overall. So maybe get them on Dragonshire if you can.
It's also important to note, again, there's only 6 maps played here. So, like, it does look like they're good on maps they don't play often, but, you're missing Cursed, you're missing Tomb, you're missing Alterac. All maps that tend to be very macro heavy.
Right.
So, although Tomb is not macro heavy, I take that back. I think I'm curious to see again why those maps haven't been picked. Maybe like Battlefield of Eternity, which I thought was more popular in the East. Well, clearly not that popular because I don't think it was there. Do you mind tapping back just to see?
Sorry. What?
Oh, never mind. It's okay if we passed. But yeah, I'm just curious to see like what the win rates on those 4 maps would be. It might be worth seeing there.
Yeah. Sorry, I moved on to showing the stats. I'm trying to bring up.
So before we get into the analysis of ABBA Murky Cult, which is the second place seed, I think it's important to note the most important stat of ABBA Murky Cult, right?
Yeah.
That is the amount of times they play Murky. And that stat. Unlike ABBA, which I think they played twice, they have not played Murky. What are they doing? So from now on, we will be addressing them as just ABBA Cult, because until they play Murky, they did not get the luxury of being called ABBA Murky Cult.
That's fair. As someone who comes here for memes, lives for the memes, denying me those memes, especially as a Murky lover, I think is a great offense, and we shall not respect them in this analysis.
Yeah, and Murky's not even banned against them, so like they don't even have that excuse.
Yeah.
So, boo. That's like a down vote from me. Or that's the only analysis we have.
Yeah, we're done now. No, all right. So I'll move on to some heroes. Pretty high win rates on Greymane. Sorry.
Yeah, before you go, they do have the highest hero pool in B West though, with 46 heroes. So
that's
you'll
a lot.
That.
That's 50% more than the lowest at 29, right? So I think
and this is ABBA Murky Cult also has been like lost a lot to a good amount of teams lower than them. So they typically get a lot of points because they never get dominated. So they'll always take a game off, which is how they got so high, even with I think more losses than most teams even below them.
Right, that's fair. Yeah, I was just looking at that huge hero pool. It's a lot of scrolling. They do have a pretty high win rate on Diablo, which I think is impressive.
You're also not showing the hero on the stream. So.
Yeah, that's okay. It's up there.
So other stuff. Well, they'll fix that. Did I disconnect from the stream? There we go.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
So, wait. Fears. Okay, sorry, continue.
Alright, high win rate on Diablo, 75% over 8 games, which I think is impressive because I just went on my rant a couple teams ago about feeling like Diablo's off meta and had a low win rate on that team. Shows they like a pick comp. That's kind of what Diablo's MO is. And in terms of maps, very even distribution, I would say, between all the maps. A lot of 3s, 5, 6. And then also pretty good win rates across the board. Not a huge weakness, other than only 50% on BOE. But I think BOE, a lot of teams at least we don't like it because it's a bit of a coin flip because it can kind of
The little
snowball on
team
you.
called.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So some other things, similar to jailbait, ABBA cult typically bans the maps of what their opponent player is good. They have 4 bans on Dragon, they have 4 bans on Curse, 4 bans on Towers of Doom, 3 bans on Spiders. So they're really not afraid to take you to any map. They're more just don't want you to go to your best maps. Some other fun fact stats is that they have a very high win rate on first pick. So, they have like 10% higher win rate on first pick, which is higher than normal even. I think first pick also just generally has a little bit of a higher win rate at the moment. But they have a really high healing. But to compensate that, they also take 54k of damage every game. So I don't. Do you know who their healer is, Liddell? Did you get that?
No.
But whoever, yeah.
I can't.
I'm
So
gonna
I
quickly
moved
look
on
at that.
behind the scenes. I moved on to Caffeinated Nights. So
It's okay. I'll look at it myself. Their healer, which is Magini. Apologize if I mispronounced that. Props to him because he's really, I think, pulling the team behind the scenes, at least through the stats. You don't take 50k more damage than the average team, and have the second highest healing without the healer pulling some strings. Yeah, and that's it.
all right. On to Caffeinated Nights, who should get a shout out because they had the best win rate across all of both divisions, and they're also kind of Yana soft. Yana, the team that won West last season.
Yana Light.
Yeah, I shouldn't say soft. Yana Light. Just because they have dropped maps, but they haven't dropped a series, I believe, which is impressive.
Just wait till the finals,
Yeah, when Dirtons catch things.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's not a dig at Dirt. That's just based off of how we did our brackets.
Yeah. Yeah. So, some interesting stats about Caffeinated Nights is that even though they're like the first ranked in the div and haven't dropped a series, they do have the lowest healing in the playoffs, and the longest time till first fort. So they're clearly, not playing a super aggressive game, but also not taking a lot of damage if they manage to keep that alive that long. Maybe they just don't need that much healing. Sorry, go.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I wanted to finish your point. I'm really excited to get to the mind-breaking stat and hope that we haven't actually just read the stats wrong, because you're talking to a political science major here, so my stats aren't the best. But there is some mind-breaking, if we're right, stats with Caffeinated Nights. Do you want to take that away, Silver?
Yeah. So the thing we found very interesting is that it's important to note that they have an 81.8% win rate, but if they take the first fort, that win rate's only 63%. So that means if they take the first fort, they actually have a 20% lower chance to win the game. And then if they take the first keep, that's at 79, which is 2% lower, so that's about average. But their first objective is also about 10 to 15% lower. So if they get the early lead with first fort or first objective, they're actually significantly more likely to lose the game, which is very interesting for a first place team to have. So I don't know how you really take that as a strategy to fight them.
Just when you're playing them, give them first fort uncontested. Just walk away, sit in base, and go have your first fort, and then you just lowered your win rate, your chance of winning by 20%.
That's the next level plays, big brain.
Yeah, and then if you're losing in game and it's as the game's going on, just give them first keep, and then see if that changes anything.
Yeah, that'll help you by 2 to 4%.
Yeah.
So they also have some good win rates on heroes. If you want to start into that, Liddell. I think it's also important if you scroll down with the heroes too a little.
Okay. Yeah.
Chat's preferencing.
They want a little scroll. Okay. Well, as I talk about the top one,
Yeah. There's some 100% with 7s a little down. I think is what they're getting at.
Yeah. So they have really good win rates on all of the top play. I mean, obviously you're gonna get 81 as the average win rate because that's their win rate overall.
They've only dropped 4 games, which is out of 28 games. They've dropped 4.
So maybe I should focus on their losers and who they suck at.
Yeah, who do they suck at? Yeah, get them.
Kel'Thas,
Morales,
Vala, and Morales, and they suck at a Nubarak. Although I think a Nubarak sucks, so I think that maybe a.
Although there's a shout out to Hanzo. I think we trash talked Hanzo a little earlier, and I think he has 7 games with a 100% win
I
rate.
need to look at
Very
his build.
impressive.
If it's scattershot build, then I guess I have to uninstall Heroes because I've done so many scattershot build rants on streams too, so it's documented.
All right. Well, we'll have to go back and check that out next time.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, there's not much to say because it's also good. I can't tell if any of these characters carried their game because the win rates are also high. Other than the fact that they should never play a Nubarak ever. They should sell a Nubarak if that's an option in the game, which it's not. But
I mean, wait till a Nubarak gets buffed.
And they also really suck at Alterac Pass, and they really suck at Cursed Hollow.
Yes.
Is my analysis. I'll stop this bit now because I feel like I'm getting a bit mean. Obviously, they're a really good team.
No. They have very impressive stats that you can't really do any deep analysis without watching their games, which unfortunately is B Easters, who mostly scout our own team.
Yeah.
Avid. I mean, if anyone in the chat has any deep insights, they're welcome.
Into why they're so good, other than the fact they just win, despite not taking first 4 and then losing more. Which still breaks my mind. All right. Do you want to go on to? So we've gone over all the key stats. Do you want to finish this up? And I apologize, we didn't do a playoff bracket. We just thought we're uneducated fools on B West, and there's like no point. We'd basically just be. Based on how the B West season went, I would just pick higher seed and move on.
Yeah, I agree.
And so I
would pick higher seed, except for like Abba Murky Cult, I think.
Yeah, you get spicy and pick lower seed on that one.
Yeah. That's your upset because they've lost to some lower seeds. They'll lose 2-1, but they might lose. Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna go over to the BE stats screen now, and do you want to read off all of your fun stats that you?
Yeah. So we just looked through the fun stats again. This is a little bit out of date, so these might not be true when here's the stats of the storm is updated in sometimes shortly.
Monday.
But for now, so just shoutouts for B East to start with, I guess. So we have Materium as highest KDA and highest healing per minute. And highest healing per minute this season. And also, again, shout out to Falendroth, DB Smiling, and Kill for doing the stat stuff that we based all this on, as I continue reading more stats. So Famous was the top average hero damage with a lot of Hanzo play, so maybe a point against us. Bragg Stellar, which I think is 2 seasons in a row now, has the highest hero damage, and he also has the highest kills this season, so very impressive to be that consistent over that long. Nanani and Ace is something we noticed, at least for playmakers, at least on the tanks. Carpe Diem has the lowest average deaths, and he's also one of the best healers in Div B East, at least when it comes to plays, although not really on the stats of the healer. Similar to no stats, we Royal and Duck as good main tanks that we know has set up like a lot of good team fights. Coincidentally, both good on ETC. Novus from Uncountedly Dumb has the highest siege damage at the moment. Percentage of team damage goes to Idiom though, so Idioms does the most damage on his team by a large percentage, and is he carrying the team? But we'll have to, figure that out. Yeah. MJ Doom has the best experience in per minute and total in Div B East. Jimmy has the highest CC time for stunning people, all over and in streams. Highest camp takes goes to Feldraw. Best rise damage, the most important stat on Infernal goes to Rise Robin. Non-champion has slaughtered the most Zerg. I do not know if that means he's faced Zagara more times than other people or not. Falendroth will have to talk. The Award of Shames goes to Lothar, Rain, and shortly followed by Synchrony, because they have B-stepped the most in B East. Shame all of you. Most taunts, which is the dance, not the variant taunts, goes to Rain with 108 taunts. But the biggest hero pools goes to Atlas and Captain Wedge with 15, shortly followed by Ace.
That's almost someone different every game at that point.
Yeah, 15 is ridiculously high for a hero pool. The most amount of sprays was Kicknaz with 99, but I think the most shocking stat in all of Div B East was the amount of dances. Captain Wedge, the local representative to the board in Heroes of the Storm, dancing on his opponents 366 times in less than 30 games. That's
Yeah.
So much. The next highest is about 70, so he's danced like 5 times more than any other person in the game. Most dragons captured is Kotip. Most of mortal damage is Darker Black. Most Towers of Doom's capped is Fishing Queen. Most percentage of the damage taken in any team is Synchrony. So is Idioms carrying the team or Synchrony? Big questions here. Time standing on Temple, Gohan. I don't know if that's a good stat or not, but you have it. And a shout out to all of B East for being tied with turning in the most doubloons over the entire season. And of course, shout out to teams that did make the playoffs. We didn't cover you, but it was a good season. There was a lot of competition. There's very close call for playoffs at the end. Almost any team can make it. Thanks for a good season.
Yeah, do you want to move on to some B West stats?
Yes. Sorry, let me scroll down. They're in different sections in this document I have open. So B West fun facts. So also keep in mind all these fun facts have like a little bit of a minimum game. If you played, I think 5 or games less, I did count you. I see someone on the chat's into my doubloon comment. Maybe that's why everyone has. So highest average takedowns goes to Elune. Highest KDA goes to Jaggermeister. Lowest average deaths goes to Kurt Dog, slowly followed by Beaver Hunter, I think is the pronunciation. Highest average hero damage per minute and total is My Jewish Cat, both shortly followed by Vivanchi in both categories. Vivanchi almost getting both, actually. It's very close. Highest average siege is Skeptic. Highest damage taken and per death is Doberman, maybe the best tank. I don't know. Highest average CC time is Strogs. Melt Pointer has the most mercenary camps. Tornado has the most XP gained. Jobber has the most important stat of all, which is the most immortal damage. And R1E Poe has the most Dragonites captured throughout the season. Most infernal minion damage, again, another important stat is Train. Now we get to the fun stats. Sprays, Elune with 1,190 sprays throughout the season. What the hell is he doing in games?
He's a big graffiti artist,
poster boy. Yeah. The next highest is 71 for context. So, what's he doing? The highest B steps is Karama, shame on you, and Lykeman is second most B steps, again shame.
Yeah.
Highest average healing per death and per minute is Majini, which I think is the healer I shouted out on. Was it Caffeinated Nights? I think. No, I think that might have been Abacult. Okay, I forget which team he's on. Yeah, he's on Abacult. So Luna's a she. My bad. I apologize, chat. But what's she doing? What's she doing in the game? No. And then high structure damage is Kalkin. And again, you all tied for highest doubloons turned in over the season. So congrats.
How weird that both divisions have the same stat on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It really is.
Okay, well that's it. It's been a bit of a marathon. Went a lot over time than we thought it would be, but I hope.
Actually, I do have a few last stats to say quickly.
Oh, a few more stats. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Good thing I have so many exclamation marks above the stat screen.
So just a few fun Div B facts. Sorry, we're late, so we're just going to rush through this. Illidan is the only character not once played in the entirety of Div B. Every other character was seen at least once. And that the most played characters overall of Div B was ETC in tank role, Leoric in the bruiser role, Raynor in the AA role, and Li Ming in the mage role, with Joanna having the highest win rate and Zool having the highest ban rate. And that is it.
All right.
Sorry, now you can do your conclusion, Liddell.
Great. So thanks to anyone who stuck around. Hope all the B East people enjoyed their section on the B West, enjoyed their section. Sorry we couldn't go as in depth. Maybe when we become bigger streamers next season, we'll watch some more games in other divisions. Right now we're very B East focused. But we hope you liked it. Went a bit over time. But we'd love to do stuff like this in the future for NGS. And so we had a good time. Before you leave chat, just any criticisms, things we could work on, things you liked, all that stuff we appreciate. And I thank you, Canadian Internet, for holding up. It gave out as the stream started, but it's been good to me ever since. And it will never go out again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have complaints.
Alright. I'll
But,
take
yeah,
one
yeah,
per stream, one conk out.
okay, that's fair. It was only for a minute at a time sometimes. Yeah. All right. Thanks for joining in.
All right. Good night, everyone. Sleep tight. Good luck in the playoffs.